All right, we're talking about New Year's resolutions. It's that time of year. But I want to talk about New Year's resolutions and why they suck, why they don't work, why they're basically set up to fail, and what you can do instead, especially as neurodivergent people. Welcome to this podcast. Or welcome back to this podcast, because I've done this before and then fell off the wagon. Back in 2023, I started a podcast and I called it something about imperfect action. And then I got a couple episodes out and then just stopped. And it wasn't fun. It wasn't inspiring me for a multitude of reasons. We can get into that later. I will say, I hate the title. I want a different title. I asked ChatGPT for titles and it said something about inner badass. I don't know. You tell me. Give me suggestions for a podcast title. We'll work on it. Come back later. We'll have a title for this. All right. So let's just get into it. Being that it is the end of December right now, we're coming into January of 2025. We're talking about New Year's resolutions and why they suck. That's right. I said it. They suck. They don't work, especially for neurodivergent people. I don't think that New Year's resolutions are set up to win. I think you're set up to fail. I think they're a product of the hyper-productivity sort of mainstream program that we've got ourselves running on. I have been a person who has set resolutions to mixed results. There's resolutions that I have kept. There's resolutions that have just fallen off the wagon right away. I think there's a couple things in our way from creating achievable, consistent, and connected resolutions. I don't like the word resolutions. I think you can change your life at any point in the year. You do not need to wait for December 31st, January 1st to make a positive change in your life or make any change, make any sort of shift or transformation in your life. You do not have to wait for this time, but it kind of feels like there's all this buildup to this time, especially as neurodivergent people. For many reasons, my audience is filled, myself included, with neurodivergent, beautiful people. And I do think it's a product of the staff spinning. That's probably why you're here, is because some sort of staff or lightsaber spinning. I think that practice and that activity calls to neurodivergent people. I think it's set up really well for us. So I think that's why we've all gathered here today. If you're not a neurodivergent people, if you're not a people like that, that's cool too. You do you. But I'm gonna frame everything we talk about today, and pretty much in this podcast in general, from a neurodivergent point of view, because that's the only point of view that I have. That's the only point of view I've ever had. So here we go. New Year's resolutions for neurodivergent people, especially, do not work. You are not set up to succeed in a New Year's resolution. And I think there's many reasons for that. One, we've got this late stage capitalism, hyper-productivity train that has a lot of momentum still, that we're all, despite our best efforts, we're all very much still on it, still participating in it. It takes a long time to sort of remove yourself and deprogram from that. And I'm speaking from personal experience. As much as I want to get off that train, I'm still very much on that train. And it feels like there's a lot of weight and there's a lot of pressure moving in this direction. Okay, like December 31st hits, we move into a new year at midnight. You have to change your whole life. You got to reassess. You got to make all these changes. And then they got to make them stick for a whole year. And like, how overwhelming is that? To be looking down the barrel of a brand new year. You're standing at the precipice of this brand new year. You got 365 days ahead of you, and you're supposed to make a decision right now on January 1st, what your whole year is going to look like, or what you're going to accomplish this year, bearing any sort of extenuating circumstance or opportunity or experience that you may have in this upcoming year. You're just deciding everything right now based on how you feel after you've done Christmas and the holidays and eaten way too much, and you're not in your regular rhythm. Everything is slowed down. We're in the pit of winter. Like, you're supposed to be making those decisions right now. That doesn't make any sense. That's a lot to put on yourself and a lot of pressure to be putting on your nervous system in order to make some positive change in your life. And no wonder everybody falls off the wagon in February. I do want to talk about the nervous system. We're going to come back to that in a second. Okay, the other thing we have about New Year's resolutions, I kind of touched it on already. So in the Northern Hemisphere, it's winter. It is the dead of winter. We just got over the solstice where it's the darkest time of year. This is not the energy to be going full force into your dreams or your goals or your manifestations. This is not the energy of this time of year. This time of year is dark. It's about rest. It's about restoration. It's about reflection and review. So that's what we do when we're in the dark, is we think about stuff. And that is what this energy is telling us to do. It is not the energy of spring that is all about rebirth and newness and blooming of seeds that you planted. It is not that, or is not the summer energy that is bright and full of heat and energy. Like, it's not that. It's not even fall, where you're harvesting the things you've created over the year. It is the dead of winter. So if you're approaching your New Year's resolutions from a like, I'm going to change everything about my life, I'm going to do all this, this, and this, and this, and you give yourself a big list of things to do, you're just asking to be let down, basically, because you're not moving with the natural energy of the seasons and the earth. And I know that sounds woo-woo, and I love woo-woo shit. And it took me a long time to admit that to myself, that January, February are not the times to be making these big, lofty, big goals. Don't get me wrong, you can set goals, but I think the way that you approach them and enter into them and the intention and the energy behind them is a very different thing than what we're being sold, what New Year's resolutions are supposed to be. And I especially mean that as a neurodivergent person who has a history of burnout. I am still recovering from burnout, and I go through cycles of autistic shutdown and burnout. So if I came in guns blazing on January 1st, I would crash and burn by early February. Guaranteed. How do I, as a neurodivergent person, that is a very ambitious and determined person, how do I navigate into this new year with the intention of positive change and positive transformation without burning the candle at both ends? That really, really is probably the main thing that gets in my way personally, is my own tendency to go through that cycle of burnout. And so that's still something I'm working on. And so I just want to make sure that as I'm coming into a new year, I'm not setting myself up for failure. I'm not setting myself up to need 2 weeks to just crawl into a dark hole and not talk to anybody. We don't have time for that anymore. The time's ticking. The planet's got a timer, and I don't know how long we're going to last. The planet's melting. There's a lot of conflict out there, and the aliens are here. So I think it's time to go. I think it's time to just throw it all out into the wind and see what happens. And then the other thing I want to talk about, which goes hand in hand with the time of year, putting way too much pressure on ourselves to create these goals, and then also being a neurodivergent person, is the nervous system regulation, is how much creating these goals and ideas and paths forward, how much pressure that puts on our nervous system. And when we're neurodivergent people, we are usually in a state of dysregulation. And that's where that burnout comes from, is you get to a point where your nervous system is so dysregulated that it has to shut down in order to recover. And then on top of that, we're putting all this pressure and all these goals and ideas of the things we want to do this year. It's an exciting time. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's the new year, like anything's possible. It's sort of like a blank slate. But by putting all that pressure on ourselves to create all these changes and create all these changes instantaneously, again, you're asking yourself to fail because your nervous system can't handle that yet. Your nervous system is this beautiful electrical wiring system that connects your brain to your body. It connects like how we move, how we feel, our emotions, our thoughts, our memories. Like, it is connected to everything. And when you are in a regulated state, your body is operating at its optimal levels. You can do anything. You can literally create anything from nothing. And so your nervous system has this really beautiful capacity for change. It's called neuroplasticity. It is your body's ability to change and evolve and grow over time. So for instance, I'm going to bring it back to staff spinning because that's probably how you found me and why we're here in some capacity. When we're learning a new staff spinning skill, say you're doing figure eight, the first thing I'm going to teach you in any class that you take with me is we're going to practice figure eights. When you first pick up the staff for the very first time, you have not built the neuromuscular connections throughout your nervous system to be able to do the skill fluidly if you're a brand new beginner. But then over time, as like, say we do 6-week class, as I do twice a year, every week we work through the figure eights. And then slowly after each week, you start noticing these little incremental improvements. That is your neuroplasticity at work. That is your nervous system adapting and evolving and changing based on the external stressors, even though this isn't really stressful, but it is an external force, let's say. Based on the external forces, your body is adapting and shifting. Over time, your nervous system is creating more defined neuromuscular pathways so that the next time you pick up the staff, it's much easier to recall the skill and you can do it with so much more ease and flow and you're not using so much hard drive space in your brain. So that's what our nervous system is designed to do, which is a great thing because it means that we are very adaptable and we are very susceptible to change. But if we're trying to do it too soon, too much too soon, that's a recipe for burnout. You're asking for you to lose interest. You're asking for too much too soon, especially as neurodivergent people, because we're already at our max regulation. Like I'm already just on a daily basis teetering on the edge of being completely dysregulated. I'm already in fight or flight on a low level every single day. So if I'm going to put way too much pressure and too much on my plate, expect too much of myself right out of the gates in January when it's the darkest month of the year, the energy isn't the right time, I'm coming off of a disruption in my schedule and my structure from like just the holidays, and I'm fatigued and tired and battle worn from the last year, my nervous system isn't in an optimal place to take on all these new things and make all these little changes. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw out this whole neurotypical idea of what our resolutions should look like. If you don't even want to set resolutions, don't. If that goal setting structure doesn't work for you and it makes you feel anxious, don't do it. You don't need to do it. You absolutely do not need to participate in this. But what I do want to offer is a different perspective and a different way of looking at how we can set goals and maintain them throughout the year from a neurodivergent perspective in a way that's very flexible and easy and gentle on your body, because that's a huge thing as a neurodivergent person that I'm learning and really trying to implement right now is being gentle and kind to myself. Let's get into it. So your New Year's resolutions suck. They don't work. You're set up to fail. Here's what you can do instead. Number one, I want you to remember what I said about the energy of this time of year. It's the darkest, coldest, in Vancouver, the wettest time of the year. This is a time for rest. This is a time for restoration. This is a time for reflection. This is a time for review. So I want you to sit with that. I want you to sit and take inventory of this past year or past years. Just take inventory of what's been going on and then reflect on who you are, where you are at honestly in this moment, and what you want to create in the future. What is the vision? How do I want to feel? When that big opportunity that I've been calling in comes to me, how do I want to feel in that opportunity? Because it's one thing for my ego to receive the big, oh my God, like I'm so special, look at me. But being a neurodivergent person, I get dysregulated really easily. So the opportunity that I really want to call in is I want to feel good. I want to feel calm and confident and that I got this, that I am in my element. I am in alignment in this opportunity. So what I'm really looking for is that calm, confidence, aligned space in my body, because that's a space where I'm very regulated and I'm able to maintain that. I am taking inventory of all the different places where I'm masking or I'm trying to show up as something that I'm not, or I'm not reaching for things that aren't connected with my heart. They're a little bit more connected into my like brain and my ego and my like constant rumination. So taking time to you can either do this as like a meditation. You could do it as a journal entry. I love journaling. Journaling is fantastic. You could also just go for a walk. I also love walking. Side note, I just recently discovered that I have a hobby and have had a hobby for many, many years, decades even. That hobby is hiking. I go hiking multiple times a week. Like I will drive myself somewhere to go for a walk in the forest. And never occurred to me that that is a hobby until just a little while ago. Small victories. Anyway, so taking inventory of your year. So you can meditate, you can journal about it, you can walk about it, you can talk with somebody you trust about it. That could be a pet or a friend or a loved one. You could do all of the above. But I do just want you to take inventory of what's working, really take inventory of what is working for you. Focus on something that's positive, but also take inventory of what's really not working and be really honest with yourself about why that's not working. Because sometimes it's us getting in our own way. Our own self-sabotage is happening. And that again, it comes back down to the nervous system being programmed to operate in a certain way. Take some time to reflect. This is the energy of the year. This is what you want to be doing at this time of year, so that coming into the new year, you have a better idea of at least the path that you want to start walking on, or the direction that you want to head. The second thing that I want you to do is to pick a theme for the year. Another way of saying this is pick an intention. I feel weird about the word intention, so I'm going to say pick a theme. And a theme can mean many things, but basically what this theme is it's an overarching energy that you can connect to and anchor into throughout the year when you inevitably fall off the wagon, get dysregulated, shut down, burn out, lose interest, hyperfixate on something else. The world is dark and full of terrors. The aliens abduct us all. A theme is something that you can connect to. It's broad enough that even when you have moments and pockets of times, months even, you can always find a way to anchor back in to your theme. And I want to give you an example. I'm going to make it really broad right now. And side note, if you want to change your theme at any point in the year, you are absolutely welcome to do that. You do not have to stick with a theme. I know, like, if you're like me and you kind of get that like very rigid black and white thinking of like, this is what I picked and I have to stick to it. You don't have to do that. You can switch it up at any point of the year. But your theme. So I want to give you an example. So say some of your goals this year are to practice staff spinning more. You want to go to the gym more. You want to get stronger. You want to get fitter. Maybe you want to have a six pack. Like generally you just want to be healthier and more fit. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we could do in there. What's probably going to happen is you're going to fall into the conditioning of like, well, if I want to get fit, that means that I have to go to the gym X number of days a week and I have to spend at least an hour there. And while I'm there, I'm probably going to have to run on a fucking treadmill, and treadmills are awful. They're not fun. And I'm going to have to do all these things that I'm going to absolutely hate. I'm not going to enjoy myself, and I'm going to have to eat in a way that's different from the way that I like to eat. And it's going to be really big, but I'm going to force myself to do it. And I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week. Okay, cool. Like if you're into that, go for it. But getting fit does not mean that you have to go to the gym. A gym is a place where you can get fit. Generally, just moving your body is also a way to get fit. Getting fit could mean yoga. It could be dance. It could be spinning your staff. It could be going for a walk. It could be something as simple as taking the stairs rather than the elevator or the escalator. Little things like that. That can all be looped into fitness. But what happens if you're sick? What happens if you're dysregulated and you're burnt out and you can't do any of those things? So does that mean that your whole resolution has gone to shit because you are not in that same rhythm that you were in when you had all that adrenaline to start that resolution? No. You're creating a little bit too much rigidity and you're creating a little bit too much pressure on your nervous system. Because if you're starting from scratch, your nervous system is not set up for that. Your nervous system is not built. It has not created created the neural pathways to be able to sustain going to the gym 3 days a week. It's not in your programming. So it's gonna be really hard. Like maybe you can get through it the first week, maybe the second, but then you start falling off because you're asking your nervous system to perform a function and a task that it has not trained itself to do. It has not downloaded that software yet. You've barely just clicked open in the app store. You've clicked the little cloud. You haven't actually like waited for the app to download. So you're asking too much of your nervous system right away. And then by February, you're barely going to the gym at all. And then you feel shitty about yourself. And it just starts this whole like blah, 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 blah program. But your goal for the year is to be more fit. So you could just pick a theme for the whole year of movement. And if I have the capacity when I edit this, I'm going to add a thing that sparkles and goes movement. I don't even know if I know how to do that. I'm sure I can figure it out. It might be too much work. Having a theme for the year of movement allows us a lot of space to work with the energy that we're at, to work with where we are at on any given day, because any given day is a different day. So movement means that, yeah, I could go to the gym. That is a thing that I could do. When I pick movement as a whole as a theme, that can be working out, that can be practicing with my staff, that can be taking a yoga class, a dance class, that could be stretching, go for a walk around the block, or that could mean drive yourself into the forest and go for a walk out there. That could mean parking a little bit farther away at the grocery store. That could mean, like in my building, I take the stairs down to the parkade. I take the elevator up, but I take the stairs down. Little things like that can mean movement. And based on where you're at, based on where your energy is at, maybe one day you have the energy to go to the gym, but then the next day you don't have that same energy. So maybe your movement is a somatic experiencing practice. I really like tremoring and shaking. Literally, you just sit here and you do this. You stand up and you do it and you like drop your heels into the floor for 2 minutes. That is movement. The intention of movement throughout the year will go a long way. And we all know that little changes over time make a huge difference. So when I'm giving myself that theme throughout the year, it's just something that I can anchor into so that when I do have the energy and the inspiration to move, I move. And then that also allows me the space when I'm like, I can barely get out of bed. I don't know how to do life. I can't even brush my teeth right now. It lets you off the hook and you've still achieved your goals at the end of the day. And then it also gives you the space to not only work with your energy, but it also gives you the space to be really creative and add more if you want more. Rather than at the beginning of the year, you're going to like, I'm going to get super fit and lose weight. Like that's so specific. You don't know what's happening in the year. But if I pick the theme of movement, my job the whole year is just to enjoy moving when I have the capacity to move. And it still gives me enough structure that I can set specific goals within that. But at the end of the day, when shit goes sideways, because it will, like that's just where we're at in this time and space, it still gives you space to anchor into that theme, anchor into what you want to create, the vision of what you want to create in the year, and you're still moving towards it. Even a millimeter is closer than you were a millimeter ago. And those little steps over the course of a year will make a huge difference. That sort of brings me into the next piece, which is if you are going to set specific goals, break them into small pieces. I am not a person that puts time frames on my goals. I find that puts too much pressure on me and then I get too hyper fixated on doing it by this time and it completely takes me out of the present moment and the flow. When I break down things, this is just how my brain works personally. It's a blessing and a curse, but you'll see it in the way that I teach skills, how I have the ability to break really complex movement and skills into their most basic pieces because I see all the pieces. I see how all the pieces work together. When I see a task, I'm like, there's 40,000 pieces and steps to this task. And it sometimes gets really overwhelming for me. And then I shut down and I don't do it at all. Cooking is a really good example of that. Cooking a meal is so much more than cooking a meal. Cooking a meal is having to plan what you want to make. So that means I have to go to a website or this or that or a book. Then I have to figure out what I have in my pantry and my fridge and then figure out what I need to go buy. Then I have to put my jacket and my shoes on. Then I have to go downstairs into the parkade, get in my car. Then I've got to drive to the grocery store. Then I have to find a place to park, get out of the car, walk into the grocery store, find a basket, walk through the grocery store, which is just a sensory nightmare all in one, find all the things that I need, go to the checkout, pay for the things, put them in the bag, get back to my car. Like, you see where I'm going with this. Like, there's like cooking a meal is like 50,000 steps and it takes way too many spoons for me. Tend not to cook things. You'd be appalled, but the things I eat. I digress. So you want to break your goals into smaller pieces so that they are a little bit more accessible and they're a lot more achievable. So again, going back to the movement thing, I want to get fit. I want to get strong. I want to be more muscular. I want to lose weight. Okay, that's a lot. There's a lot in there. So one thing we can do is we can move more, or we've talked about creating the theme of movement. That gives me a direction and an anchor. So one of the things I want to try doing is going to the gym more. Great. Maybe I only go to the gym once a week or once every couple weeks. I haven't found the rhythm of going to the gym. Trust me, I get it. I'm a gym person and I hate going to gyms. Like, I'm a personal trainer. I've grown up in a gym. I know what to do in a gym, and I will go to a gym and be like, what do I do? So one of the things I'm just going to do for the first bit of the year, in the time of the year where it's dark and it's cold, it's not necessarily inspiring me to go out and go to the gym. And gyms are cold. I don't know why. Gyms are like working out in freezers. I don't want to overwhelm myself. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm just going to give myself maybe a 30-day time frame, or maybe like 6 weeks. I would do it month by month or quarter by quarter. Or like every 2 months. You do you. But for the month of January, my only task, the only thing I'm going to ask of myself is to go to the gym 1 day a week. And I'm going to take that big, hairy, audacious goal of I want to get fit, I want to lose weight, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just going to break it down into I'm going to go to the gym 1 day a week. That's the only thing that I have to do in relation to that bigger goal. And then at the end of January, I'm going to ask myself, how was that? Be honest with yourself. Like, how was it? How did I do? Did I miss any weeks, or did I struggle but still went anyway? And so then you can reassess then. And then at the end of January, you can take that small little goal that you made and you can be like, you know what? I struggled with just going 1 day a week. So I'm just going to keep it for February. I'm just going to keep it at 1 day a week. So I'm just taking these big, hairy, audacious goals and I'm breaking them down into their minuscule, most achievable pieces. And I don't want you to put any more than 3 little pieces on your plate at one time. Even one tiny little piece is enough. Like I said, those little minuscule changes do a lot for training your nervous system how to handle the capacity for more, but they also help you maintain that little bit of dopamine that we need, especially as neurodivergent people. Like, we're lacking in dopamine. We need these little tasks for us to accomplish so that we get the kickback of that dopamine when we achieve them. That was going to go back into my next piece. I'm like so ahead of myself. So yeah, so I don't want you to put more than 3 little pieces on your plate at any time. So break your goal down into their 3 most basic pieces, and then every month, or if every month is too much for you, I find every month a little bit too much, depending on what it is. Like drinking water every morning, that's a really good one to like create a little calendar and give yourself a sticker every morning that you do it. And yes, you should give yourself stickers as an adult. You are never too old for stickers. Your inner child will love you for it. I give myself stickers all the time. Actually just bought stickers. They're over there. They're cats. So on brand for me. And at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, quarters are a really good way to reassess because quarters generally move with the seasons. At the end of the quarter or the end of the month, you do a little reassessment and you're like, what worked? What didn't work? Am I able to maintain this? If yes, keep going. Maybe shift one of your goals. So maybe it was 1 day a week in the gym. Maybe it's 2. Or maybe I just want to add that 5 minutes once a week. I'm going to pick up my staff and spin it. Keep it simple, sustainable and maintainable, because that's where we're going to find the most regulation. If we're constantly constantly putting too much on our plate, it overloads the nervous system. We get into dysregulation, we burn out, and then we move through that cycle. Rather than giving yourself some little things that you can achieve daily or weekly, and then you give yourself a sticker for them, you get a little bit of that dopamine kickback that's going to give you the energy and the inspiration and the motivation to keep going. And then also when we do this little bit of a review at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, that really allows us to dive into where we're at personally. Where is our energy? Maybe you are in a space of being in shutdown burnout mode. That's probably not a good time to be adding more to your plate. It's probably a good time to be taking things away gracefully and not beating yourself up for it, because we don't need that. That's not going to help us as much as it's programmed into us, is that, oh, fuck, I didn't do this. And like, that's not helping me. That's actually just making me feel more shitty. And I already feel kind of shitty and I want to feel less shitty. So I'm going to choose not to beat myself up if it just didn't work out that month. But like, breaking it down into small pieces and not putting too much on your plate right away. Maybe throughout the year, like maybe we get into spring, summer where it's brighter, you just naturally have more energy or more inspired to go outside and do things. Maybe then we can assess, and I'll try to remember to do a quarterly podcast about our goals and shit. Maybe then, maybe in that quarter, in that time of year where it is a little bit brighter, we have a little bit more space. Maybe we can add a few more things to our plate or experiment with adding a few more things to the list of things we want to achieve. Not too much, but just a couple little things here and there can go a long way. And I kind of touched on it. You can also experiment with things. You can also put things on your plate just to see if you can make it happen. Just put it out there into the universe of like, okay, well, I have the energy right now. I'm going to try this, but not putting any pressure to make that a non-negotiable of being like, yeah, if it happens, whatever. If not, no big deal. And then the other thing I really, really want you to get into the habit of, just on a regular basis with everything in your life, is to celebrate your small wins and victories. And there's a couple reasons why I want you to do this. One, the big reason is the dopamine factor. We are severely lacking dopamine, especially as neurodivergent people. That's one of the reasons we get dysregulated and we go into shutdown burnout mode, is because we're not getting enough dopamine to regulate our systems. So those little small wins, those little stickers that you give to yourself, or those little treats or things that you do, create that dopamine kickback that we're looking for. And then if you're getting more dopamine from the things that are actually moving you forward, the things that are actually filling you up, you're going to be doing less dopamine scrolling or dopamine escaping or dissociating to find your dopamine somewhere else. The second thing is just as like a general wellness, sort of goes into this law of attraction, woo-woo, blah, 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 which I love. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love the woo-woo bullshit. Focusing on the things that are going right, focusing on the little wins that you have, will lead to more wins, because your reticular activating system, the thing that in your brain that looks for patterns, if you train it to look for the little wins and look for the things that are going right, you will create more of that. You will see more of the little things that are winning and going right, rather than, and I'm speaking from personal experience, when especially if you're coming out of a space of burnout or like a depressive cycle, like a really dark period where you were so focused on the negative, you were so focused on all the things that are not working, all the lack and the scarcity and just how awful you feel on a daily basis. That is a really, really difficult program to get yourself out of. That is your nervous system trying to protect and save itself. It's a defensive mechanism because it's looking for danger. It's hypervigilant to the danger around it. And yes, it does feel dangerous and crazy and scary out there. I am in the process of doing this right now. I got to a point where I'm like, the more I hyperfixate on all the shit that's going wrong, the more I'm going to see what's going wrong, the more my life is going to go wrong. I need to reprogram myself. I need to reprogram my nervous system to focus and notice the things that are going right. I need to celebrate the little wins and victories so that I can see that on a more regular and consistent basis. And therefore, I'm going to create more of that. I'm going to get more dopamine out of the things that fill me up rather than trying to find dopamine on the things that are pulling me down. One of the most challenging things you will ever do. It is worth it, though. Again, start small. But if you can have these little tasks, like say it's practicing staff spinning once a week, and then every time you finish that, you get a sticker or you go buy yourself a cookie or you have a beer, wonderful. Like keep doing that so that you get that emotional and dopamine kickback. So then you'll keep doing it and then you'll be less reliant on the things that we know are not working for us. And they're just taking us down the wrong rabbit hole. So that's everything I have to say about New Year's resolutions. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful for you in some capacity. I would like to revisit the topic of setting and achieving goals throughout the year. Again, like I said, like we're putting so much pressure on ourselves to like create a whole year out of nothing on January 1st, when we know that the world is dark and full of terrors and it's crazy out there and everything is changing and things that weren't on our bingo cards are getting ticked off on our bingo cards. So I think with that in mind, I want you to approach this next new year with an element of kindness, grace. Give yourself the space to mess it up. Give yourself the space to be off for any number of days, hours, weeks, months, even the year. But don't be so hard on yourself and don't put so much pressure on yourself. Like make it a game, make it fun. So if we can find a way to move throughout the year in the rhythm and the energy that works for us, works for each one of us personally, on an individual level and like collectively, we're going to have a much better time. We're going to be much more regulated and we're going to be much more satisfied in whatever this is. So if you're interested in following me further, please make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. You can watch it on YouTube. I think it'll be on wherever you get podcasts. Who knows? If you want to work with me, there's a multitude of ways. You can take one of my classes. I have a 4-week freestyle staff spinning boot camp starting early February. That'll be in Vancouver, BC. I will do more throughout the year in other places in North America, so stay tuned. Make sure that you are connected to me on Instagram because that's where I'll post a lot of the up-to-date details. So we've got the 4-week session happening in Vancouver. You can also do personal training with me in Vancouver while I'm in town. That's fitness, mobility, creative movement, fight choreo, whatever. Work with me. I'm available. I got some spots left. If you are a professional performer in the entertainment industry or an aspiring professional performer in the entertainment industry, you can book a one-on-one career consultation session with me where we sit down either in person or on Zoom for at least 90 minutes and we'll hash out a strategy for you to navigate forward in your career. That's a really great way if you are at a bit of a plateau and you don't know where to go next, or you're brand new and you don't know where to start. That's a really good session, especially in the new year. I also have one-on-one private lessons, both online and in person. So whatever city I am in at the time, I can do a private lesson, but you can also book a private lesson via Zoom. I do have the Freestyle Staff Academy, which is an online membership to get all access to the entire library of tutorials and courses, lesson plans, practice guides, a monthly live class with me over Zoom. That's in the Freestyle Staff Academy All Access program. I also have a bunch of one-time purchase courses on the Freestyle Staff Academy website. Please make sure that you keep up to date on Instagram as well as in these emails and on the podcast. There's lots of fun things happening all the time. I'm always offering classes, so please make sure that you find me on any of the platforms and stay in the loop. Also, if you have any suggestions for topics to talk about on said podcast or suggestions for a name, because right now I got nothing, and I don't like the old name that I have, the something about imperfect action. It's not working. I'm not happy with it. I don't like it. It's kind of cringe. So if you have name suggestions, please let me know. Please make sure you rate this podcast 5 stars, 5 thumbs up. I just leave nice things about it, please. And I'm going to try and do this at least twice a month. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Because, like I said, it's always shifting. It's always changing. Our energy is all over the place. But that is my intention for the year. My theme of the year, by the way, is creativity. That can mean a lot of things, including this. But that's it for me. I hope that you have a wonderful, beautiful entrance into this new year. And I look forward to chatting and talking with you all very soon. Okay, bye.